Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got something special for all my low-end PC gamers out there. That's right, I'm talking about the brand new EA Sports FC25. Now, we all know the struggle of running modern games on older machines, especially without a dedicated graphics card. So I decided to put it to the test on my humble i3 processor, no GPU, and 8 GB of RAM. No flashy setup here. Just raw determination to see if we can kick around a football in EA Sports FC25 without turning my PC into a toaster. Let's dive in and see how this bad boy performs. So, the much-anticipated EA Sports FC25 is finally here, and guess what? I got early access. Now, I couldn't wait to test this out, especially on my low-end PC. You know how it is, when you're running on an old i3 processor with no dedicated graphics card. Firing up a new game is like rolling the dice. Will it crash? Will it even launch? Or will it simply transform my PC into a jet engine? Naturally, I was bracing myself for disaster. But to my massive relief, EA Sports FC25 launched. Yeah, you heard me right. For anyone who's been stuck in the trenches of low-end PC gaming, you know how this feels. It's like finding a winning lottery ticket in your couch cushions. So many of the new releases these days don't even make it past the loading screen before your system throws in the towel and shuts down. But not this time. FC25 launched, no problem, and I knew we were off to a good start. Now, let's get real for a second. Of course, I wasn't expecting to run this on ultra settings or anything like that. My setup doesn't exactly scream next gen. So, I did what any low-end gamer would do. Slapped every setting to low like I was trying to save power in an energy crisis. And you know what? It worked. The game actually felt playable, and that's all I really wanted. But here's where things got a little interesting. I decided to mess around with the frame rate settings. Naturally, I wanted to see if I could push it to 60 FPS. Spoiler alert, that was a terrible idea. I was getting less than 30 FPS when I tried that. We're talking 20 FPS at best. If you've ever played a game at that frame rate, you know it's like watching a flipbook animated by a snail. So, instead, I locked the frame rate at 30 FPS. And honestly, it was like night and day. The game ran much smoother and almost consistently hit 30 FPS. Nothing fancy, but very playable for a system like mine. If you're running a low-end PC like this, trust me, just go ahead and cap the frame rate at 30. Trying to push 60 FPS is just asking for disappointment and choppy gameplay. A steady 30 beats, a fluctuating 20 any day of the week. Now, here's a little pro tip for you. When I first launched the game, I got hit with a DirectX error. My heart stopped for a second, because I thought, well, that's it. My PC finally gave up. But then I realized I hadn't updated my graphics driver in, like, forever. So, I quickly hopped onto the Intel website, downloaded the latest drivers for my integrated graphics, and boom, problem solved. The game launched perfectly after that. So, if you run into a similar issue, don't freak out. Just update your drivers, and you'll likely be back in action. As for performance, there were a few hiccups here and there. I'm talking about some minor audio stuttering and video lag, but nothing game-breaking. Let's be honest, though, with my i3 processor, my system was probably running at 110% capacity just to keep the game going. At some points, it felt like the CPU and RAM were having a full-blown panic attack. But surprisingly, the gameplay stayed mostly smooth. The stutters were more of an annoyance than a real issue, and they didn't interfere with the core experience. If you're in it for the gameplay, and you're willing to forgive a little bit of lag, you'll still have a good time. All in all, for a game this new running on hardware this old, it's a win in my book. Sure, the graphics aren't blowing anyone away, but that's not why we're here. We're here for that sweet football action. And EA Sports FC25 delivers, even on low-end machines. It's definitely playable, as long as you're willing to make a few adjustments and keep your expectations in check. Alright, let's dive into the gameplay and what's new in EA Sports FC 25. Now, if you're expecting a complete revolution here, you might want to dial back those expectations just a bit. This year's release feels more like a fine-tuning of an already solid formula rather than a dramatic overhaul, and honestly, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you've been a fan of the FIFA series, FC series, then you'll appreciate the tweaks, especially in career mode. Let's start with what I personally love, career mode. This time around, they've given you more control over the trajectory of your career, and it makes a world of difference. One of the standout features is the ability to customize your board expectations. Now, this may sound like a small addition, but trust me, it's a game changer. Finally, I don't have to live in fear of my board demanding that I win the Champions League in my first season with a 2-star team. You can set more realistic goals for yourself and the club, whether that's developing young players, fighting for mid-table respect, or, if you're feeling ambitious, gunning for silverware. It adds a lot more flexibility to the game, and you get to craft a narrative that feels more personal. Speaking of player development, training plans have also been given a facelift. You now have more detailed options when it comes to player growth. It's not just about spamming simulate training anymore. There's more depth in how you can build your squad. Want your left back to turn into a flying wingback? Or maybe you want that young striker to become a poacher. You can really shape your players to fit the style of football you want to play, and that adds a new layer of strategy to career mode. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite additions, the new dynamic weather effects. We've had rain, sure, but now the weather actually matters. Wind can affect the ball's trajectory, which makes for some truly interesting situations, especially during those long through balls or set pieces. Imagine this. You've lined up a free kick with your star midfielder, but there's a strong crosswind. You'll actually need to take that into account now. No more perfect conditions every match. This brings a whole new layer of unpredictability and realism to the game. Playing in the rain and wind isn't just about visuals anymore. It genuinely impacts how you approach the game tactically. Trust me, when the wind catches that long ball and sends it flying past your striker, you'll start thinking twice about those aerial passes. A fun new mode they've added is something called Rush Mode. If you're into the quick, fast-paced action of 5v5, this is going to be right up your alley. It's kind of like the Volta mode from previous years, but this one is even faster, with more focus on short matches and high-intensity gameplay. It's a great way to mix things up when you don't feel like going through a full 90-minute 11v11 grind. Plus, it's perfect for those one-more-game moments when you just want a quick burst of football without committing to a full match. I found myself hopping into rush mode more than I expected, and it's a nice change of pace when you want to focus on pure, quick gameplay. As for Ultimate Team, the big moneymaker for EA, while there aren't massive changes, there are still a few tweaks worth noting. I didn't dive too deep into Ultimate Team for this review, but for those of you who live and breathe FUT, you'll find a few quality-of-life improvements that make it a bit smoother to manage your squad and play online. There's definitely more to explore in this mode. Now, let's talk about graphics. Obviously, I've got everything set to low because, well, you know, my PC isn't exactly a powerhouse. But even on the lowest settings, you can tell that EA Sports FC 25 has made some improvements. Player models look more detailed, and stadiums feel more alive. The crowds look a bit better, the lighting is more dynamic, and the overall presentation feels slightly sharper than last year's edition. It's not mind-blowing, but you can notice the improvements, even when running it on a potato like mine. The new weather effects I mentioned earlier also contribute to the overall atmosphere. Rain looks more realistic, and the way the ball splashes through puddles adds a little more authenticity to the experience. Sure, I'm not getting the 4K, ultra settings treatment, but for low-end PC gamers like me, it still feels immersive enough to keep you hooked. When it comes to actual gameplay mechanics, there have been a few tweaks that help smooth things out. Player movements feel slightly more fluid, and the ball physics have seen a minor improvement. You'll notice the ball reacts a bit more naturally to deflections, and passes feel more responsive. It's nothing game-changing, but if you've played the previous versions, you'll definitely feel the difference. It's like they've sanded down the rough edges, giving the gameplay a more polished and responsive feel. The new animations for shooting, tackling, and dribbling make it feel like they've worked on the smaller details. The game still retains the same core that we've come to know and love, but these little tweaks go a long way in making it feel just that bit smoother. So, overall, EA Sports FC 25 isn't reinventing the wheel, but it's giving it a nice tune-up. Career mode has more depth, the weather effects add to the realism, and the tweaks to gameplay mechanics keep things fresh. If you're already a fan of the series, these improvements will definitely enhance your experience. However, if you're looking for something radically different, this probably won't blow your mind, but it will still keep you entertained. So, what's the verdict on EA Sports FC 25 for low-end PCs? Well, the game is a small but solid upgrade, especially for career mode fans. The added customization and weather effects bring a bit more depth and realism to the table. And, if you're like me, running it on a no-graphics card setup, it's playable, as long as you manage your expectations. Sure, the game isn't pushing any boundaries visually, but it's not like we're buying these games for the fireworks display anyway. It's all about that smooth gameplay, and FC 25 delivers that even on low-end hardware. As long as you're okay with 30 FPS and a bit of stutter here and there. Is it a must-buy if you're still playing the older versions? Maybe not. But if you're craving some new features and a more immersive career mode experience, it's worth giving a shot. For my fellow low-end PC gamers, just remember to update those drivers, lock that frame rate, and you're good to go. Alright, that's a wrap. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe for more low-end gaming content. Drop a comment below if you've tried running EA Sports FC 25 on a low-spec rig like mine, and let me know how it's been working for you. And as always, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.